Ukrainian forces drive Russian troops further back in the east, recapturing towns left in ruin after weeks of fighting.
3 physicists pick up the Nobel Prize for Physics for their groundbreaking discovery into quantum entanglement.
Slowly but surely, Russian forces are being pushed back further in the east of Ukraine. These were the scenes in the city of Siversk after recent clashes between Russian and Ukrainian forces. Elsewhere in Donetsk, it's reported that the town of Sviatohursk is now under Kiev's control, after Russian units were driven out by Ukraine's forces, pushing them from nearby Limon, where life slowly returns amongst the devastation left behind, with bodies of Russian soldiers lying along the roads leading out of the city. Here, and in other recaptured areas, residents are trying to rebuild their lives, the ferocity of the battle still fresh in the memory.
I was standing in the hall, about 5 meters away, when it boomed. I was thrown back by the force of the explosion. God forbid, now I can't hear well.
Ukraine's latest victories have done nothing to deter the Kremlin's territorial claims. Its recent annexations of 4 occupied regions, criticised by the international community, has now been approved by Russia's Federal Assembly. Moscow is pushing ahead with its partial mobilization, but as recruits go through basic training, some say attitudes to the war are changing.
Now
the situation has changed. Many felt that it could or has already touched them, their families. This caused fear, a feeling of uncertainty. People say that it is not clear how to plan life now, when you don't know what will happen next.
Russia's defense ministry has confirmed that over 200,000 citizens have already been conscripted since mobilization was ordered last month. But even when they make it to the front, it remains unclear how effective they'll be in Russia's war effort.
Ukrainian forces have made substantial gains around Liman, this is northeastern Ukraine, and also in the region of Kherson, this is the south of Ukraine, in the past 24 hours, according to the Institute for the Study of War. And now Russia no longer has full control of any of the 4 regions of Ukraine it says it annexed last week. Let's take a look at the map here. After regaining the key eastern Ukrainian city of Liman over the weekend, Ukrainian forces are continuing their counteroffensive here in the region and pushing into the Luhansk region. Geolocated footage corroborates Russian claims that Ukrainian troops are continuing push east of Liman and may have broken through the Luhansk region border in the direction of Kreminna and Svatove. These 2 settlements right here. The Institute for the Study of War has previously reported the Russian groupings in the northern Kherson region and on the Liman front were largely comprised of units that had been regarded as among Russia's premier conventional fighting forces before the war. In the south of Ukraine, Ukrainian forces appear to have achieved their biggest breakthrough in the region since the war started, bursting through the front line and advancing rapidly in northwestern and also northeastern Kherson region and also along the Dnipro River. The Russian military acknowledged that Kiev's forces had broken through in the Kherson region. Russian officials acknowledged that the Kremlin is still determining which areas of occupied Ukraine it has, quote, annexed, although the upper house of the Russian parliament unanimously ratified legislation to annex Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions.
The British pound rebounded 10% on Monday and is now valued at $1.13 following record lows last week. The Treasury has now abandoned plans to scrap the top rate of income tax paid by the top rate of earners, a plan that drew near universal opposition. However, Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng said the government will press ahead with the rest of its tax-cutting incentives. But opposition members say the U-turn has come too little and too late. This comes as thousands of demonstrators rallied in London to display their concerns about the cost of living crisis.
This cost of living crisis is killing us. It's killing us all, not just me, not just my friends. It's affecting people's livelihood, it's affecting their mental health. People actually talking about suicidal thoughts that they're having now. You know, they don't know how to pay, they don't know what they're going to do next. We feel like we're going back to some Victorian Britain, you know, where people are going to be just dying in the streets. So we need our government to make radical changes that benefit us, not just the 1%ers of this world.
The Chancellor's U-turn follows criticism from a number of Conservative lawmakers who are questioning how the government will pay for its growth package. While Kwarteng says he will bring forward his mini-budget plan, Prime Minister Liz Truss has refused to eliminate cuts to benefits.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has spoken for the first time since protests engulfed his country. He said that he was heartbroken at the death of Mahsa Amini, who died after being taken into custody of the morality police. But he accused Israel and the United States of fomenting the protests and expressed his support for the security services, which have staged a brutal crackdown on protesters. Well, joining us now from New York is Hadi Khaemi, Executive Director of the Center for Human Rights in Iran. Welcome to you. Thank you so much for being with us. You will, of course, have heard that accusation from Ayatollah Khamenei that the US and Israel is stoking these protests in Iran. What's your response to that?
Well, I can tell you what we're hearing from inside Iran. Of course, it's taken as a great insult to hundreds and thousands of people who have put their lives online the last 3 weeks to come to the streets and fuel a movement to reclaim their dignity. To call them agents of Israel and America was a very tired rationale that Iran's supreme leader has used to justify his brutal rule. So many people saw this really the last words of a dictator who refuses to acknowledge reality and wants to relate everything to a foreign-based enemy. But it's very clear that there was a huge undercurrent in Iranian society, particularly among young people, who have a very clear vision. They are saying we have no future under status quo, and we're not going to be another generation of Iranians whose life is wasted for the whims and machinations of their political rulers, who don't represent them and don't do anything for a better future. So that's why I think you see very young people are really fighting to reclaim a future for themselves.
And let me ask you then about the reaction from the international community, imagining that these protests continue. For the US in particular, this comes at a critical time with regards to the nuclear deal. Do you think that's having an impact in terms of what we're hearing from the international community?
I think so. It's very hard because there's a lot happening behind the scenes. But definitely Europe and US have been very timid in reacting to the events unfolding. And it's clear to me that they're trying to gain a political point for their own purposes in the negotiations toward a nuclear deal, which have been stalled, let's remember, for nearly 2 years. There's no rush to sign that deal right now and give legitimacy to the Islamic Republic. People in Iran are saying, hold off. This is not the time to sign a nuclear deal. And I'm afraid especially the French and the Americans are not hearing that and taking steps that are very worrying at this critical moment.
A Chinese vase has sold at the Parisian auction for 7.7 million euros, excluding costs. The auction house thought it was originally from the 20th century and estimated its value at around 2,000 euros. But others say it's from the 18th century, making it very rare. The seller inherited it from her mum, who herself inherited it from her mother, a great Parisian collector.
The Nobel Peace Prize in Physics was awarded to 3 physicists this year: Alan Aspect, John F. Clauser and Anton Zeilinger. The laureate's research into quantum entanglements was quoted by the committee as paving the way for new technology based upon quantum information, which could have wider implications for the secure transfer of information in quantum computing. Their respective discovery builds on the work of John Stuart Bell's research from the 1960s, who strove to find out if, whether 2 particles flew too far apart, were they able to communicate between one another and function. This is known as quantum entanglement. The physicists conducted experiments that helped clarify a fundamental claim about quantum entanglement. The men will split the €924,000 prize money.